that he was unqualified to accept the great mission thrust upon him by God. And like Moses, he tried to refuse, though not nearly so strenuously or for so long. He too feared the people who would not accept him and might even harm him. The fact is that at one point in his prophetic career, he was thrown into a dungeon for daring to tell Jerusalem what it did not wish to hear. Nevertheless, God commanded him to go and prophesy and guaranteed that his tribe would heal down in its spiritual decay, with the defeat and the exile on the way. And the Davidic kingdom of Judah, too, was suffering from spiritual decline. In this Haftorah, Isaiah depicts the failure of both kingdoms. He begins with the encouraging prophecy that the root of Jacob, like the root unseen in the ground, trampled upon by those who walk obviously over them, will once more produce luxurious produce. Isaiah points out that despite the divine wrath visited upon the Jewish people, often to their history, they have not been disseminated as have various other nations. Those who struck Israel were punished greatly, while the Jewish people survived and will rise again. Its sin began atoned for in the physical destruction of its fields and cities. But although God preserved the root, the nation has forfeited its right to its manifest mercy because of its failure to recognize its true role in the world. Nevertheless, when the time comes, God will thrust the world to find the scattered kernels of his still beloved people. Then Isaiah goes on the doom of the 10 tribes led by Ephraim. The smile for them is arrogance and drunkenness, both of which prevent people from recognizing the truth and acting upon it. The result is the heads which are disloyal alley. The Haftorah begins with that idle scene of Israel being brought home from exile and restored to its land. Amen. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I had made a mistake here. The result is that heads which would protect them from harm. God showed Jeremiah prophetic symbol of his mission and sent him to tell the complacent citizens of Judah that their destruction will descend upon them from the north in the form of Nebuchadnezzar and his conquering the Babylonian army, which indeed destroyed the temple and exiled the people. Nevertheless, Jeremiah's first words to the Jewish people were an expression of divine love that to this day is one of the most familiar prophetic utterances. God never forgets Israel's loyalty to him since it first emerged as a nation. He may be forced to respond to its iniquities by punishment, but the necessary does not lessen his love, and thus Israel is assured that it will survive and prosper once again. Amen. Amen. And that's the commentary for the Haftorah reading. May God add a blessing to the reading, and may it guide you through the week and add a blessing to your understanding of the Torah. Amen.
You do Baruch atah Adonai, Elohim melech haolam. Blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe. We come before you humbly once again to give honor and praise to your mighty, powerful, gracious, and ever-loving name. We come once again to thank you for this opportunity that you've given us to come and be with you and meet with you and give praise to you and thank you for all the things that you have done for us through this week, last week, in the past, in the present, and in the future. We thank you for this house, Beth Elohim, with your name which is on it, that we are honored and have the opportunity to come each Shabbat and pray and share this day with you and your wonderful loving kindness which will endure forever. We thank you for all our leaders in our community, Chief Rabbi Funye, and especially our spiritual leader, Rabbi Shlomo Levi ben Levi. We ask that you continue to watch over him and our Rabbinate Rhea. Keep them strong and in walking in the way that you have set forth for them. Allow them to continue to lead us so that we may follow and be worthy in thy sight. We thank you for Imam, who has taught us and who has set forth the principle and the way that we should go in all the things that we do. We pray for the lame, the sick, the blind, the widow, and the orphans. We pray for the people that are in jail. We ask that you continue to look out for them and shine your light so that they will know. We ask for you to continue to give us the strength and the courage to walk outside of this place and to shine our light magnificently outside so that people will know that there is only one you and that you are everything, the one and only everything. Let us have the courage to continue to speak out and let people know that there is only one true and living God. We thank you for all the things that you have done for us, providing us with food, clothing, shelter, and homes. We thank you for our children. May you continue to bless them and bring them up in the way that they're supposed to. Continue to give us the strength and courage to show them the right way to go. We thank you because we have been truly blessed with the children of our school. They have all grown up to be wonderful, marvelous adults, and our little children are growing up now knowing who you are and knowing where to ask for you at. There are a lot of people out there that are blind, have no idea who you are or what day today is. We ask that you open up their heart and open up their eyes so that they may see what we see, the great, magnificent glory of your name and your power. We thank you again for having this place to be. We thank you for all the people who put in a special prayer for our student Rabbi Shlomo ben Yehuda, who is at home ill today, but I know that you're going to help take care of him, because if he could, he would definitely be here. He's one of the strengths and pillars of our community. So I ask a special blessing for him and for all the people in our community that would have loved to have been here, but for whatever reason they could not. Please continue to watch over them and keep them safe so that the next time we are here, that they can be here too, that we can all share in your magnificence. These and all other blessings we ask in your most high and holy name. Adonai Zevot. Amen. 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 Amen.
Oh, say
Thank the Most High God for giving us this opportunity to call upon His name in good health and in peace. Very important. They go hand in hand. And also a certain amount of prosperity. We thank Him for that as well. Because we have a lot to be thankful for. Whether we realize it or not, we are blessed in many ways. So, at this time, I've been informed, sadly, that the choir is not going to perform today. They're not going to sing for us. But that's okay. We give them a break today. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go straight into the reading that of this section called Shemot. And there are 5 chapters. So I'm going to ask, or if you want to use the mic, the podium, each man is going to read a chapter. And then as we're reading, and tomorrow we'll read the last chapter, the 5th chapter. So everybody will get a chance to participate. And as we're reading, as things might come up, I'll explain a couple of things, but if you have a question or something comes into your mind, feel free to say something. It's going to be interactive. Of course, we're not going to get into long debates, but we do want to touch.
Should they finish reading?
We're going to, as we're reading, because we don't want to hold the questions later. We might forget the point we wanted to bring. So we're going to expound on it now. So first and foremost, we thank the Most High God, and we pray that He opens up our mind, that we'll be able to understand the Word, because this Word was left for a purpose. It wasn't just left just to write books. These are instructions that are supposed to better our lives. So hopefully we'll gain some insight as to what this is about. So first chapter, Exodus 1, verse 1. Verse 1.
Chapter 1, verse 1. Now, these are the names of the sons of Israel who came into Egypt with Jacob. Every man came with his household: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls. And Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied and waxed exceedingly mighty. And the land was filled with them. Now there arose a new king over Egypt, who knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. Come, let us deal wisely with them. Let them multiply, or least they multiply, and it come to pass that when there befalleth us any war, they also join themselves unto our enemies, and fight against us, and get them up out of the land.
Amen. All right, so I'm going to take you a minute here. So, the children of Israel were in Egypt for a while, but yet they had not assimilated with Egyptians so much, because it was clear that there were different people amongst them. So they maintained their identity throughout all those years that they were there. So here come now, they had a new government, and so God just gained power, and in order to consolidate his power, he realized that this could be a threat, because there's just too many of them. And he didn't just want to incarcerate them, he wanted to use them for his benefit. Because he said, if perhaps eventually we go into war, and they join against the enemy, and they get up out of here. So if you don't like him, let him go. No, he didn't want to let them to go because they were productive people. And he saw all this free labor. He could build his economy and consolidate his power. So he said, we got a plan for them. And of course, just like he's doing with it, it's a perfect parallel. Here is someone who is trying to rule by division, by showing these are the enemy, and we got to make this country great again. So, let us be wise and deal with them in a manner so that we can oppress them. So, continue.
Therefore, they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens.
Yes, they increase the tax on the poor. And they make new laws to make life more difficult.
Just like that.
And they're ripping the kids out of the, well, we're going to see that. Go ahead.
Okay. And they built for Pharaoh store cities, Pithom and Ramses.
Right. And I'm told sometimes when they incarcerate people, they make them build things or manufacture stuff. Free labor.
Yes, free labor.
Boy, this is very applicable, you know? All right, let's continue.
But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied.
And we see it happening now. The more people keep still having babies.
The more they spread abroad. And they were afraid because of the children of Israel.
They felt threatened.
It says, and the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor. And they made their lives bitter with hard service in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. In all their service, wherein they make them serve with rigor.
Right.
I mean, really hard stuff.
Right. No mercy.
No mercy. And the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of one was Sipra, and the name of the other Pua. And he said, when ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, ye shall look upon the birth stool. If it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live.
Right, all right. So, basically we also know that, I just say we keep multiplying, and even today they're always finding ways to birth control and other kinds of plans to keep us from multiplying because they feel like they're being overtaken. So we see that. So here, this didn't come out of nowhere, that all of a sudden he said, let's talk to these midwives. Somehow he heard that there was going to be a deliverer, that one that would come from the Hebrews, that was going to come and deliver the people. So that's why he took that action, in addition to trying to keep the population down so that it could still maintain their power by the numbers. Okay? Let's continue. 17.
17 says, but the midwives feared God and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive.
Right. And that is also what we see had been happening here. Whenever certain orders were given, some people had the courage to know not to do.
To have abortion.
Yeah, abortion is one. But also I'm talking about when illegal orders were issued by the top government. Some people risked their neck out, even lost their jobs, because they didn't do that. And it's because of that opposition that people had the courage to stand up that we're not in worse condition than we are now. So these people fear God. They want to do the right thing. All right, continue.
And the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, Why have ye done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, Because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women.
I like that part.
Says, For they are lively, and are delivered ere the midwife, come unto them. So it means that they was popping them out faster than the midwife could get there.
Right. So I guess ear is an old English term, right? But before they got there, and so they were smart, even though they feared God, but they also realized that this man had power over them. So they had to be very diplomatic
And they were.
about how they answered him, because you're not going to be fresh to this tyrant, because you know you're off with your head. So they had to come up with a good, smart answer.
Okay, number 20. It says, And God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. 21. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, Every son that is born, ye shall cast it into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive.
Amen.
Amen.
All right. So we're going to have another person read the second chapter. Very good. So, as you can see, because these people did what was right, the Most High blessed them. And their children continued to grow. So, but Pharaoh was not deterred. You know, he's not going to give up. That was plan A. Plan A didn't work, so now he turned to his own people and gave them charge to do that. And so, as we can see, the powers, the evil powers, have their henchmen that are going to carry out their evil plan. And but we must stay fast, stay strong. Chapter 2.
Heaven all praise unto the Most High God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Amen.
And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took to a wife, a daughter of Levi, and the woman conceived, and bore a son. And when she saw him, that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. And when she could not longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bushels, and
Daubed.
daubed
Yeah, daubed with slime and with pitch.
with slime and pitch.
Right. So in other words, she took this thing and she laid over it and made a basket so that because this slime and the pitch it's like a waterproofing.
Right.
So when you put the basket or the ark in the water would
I
not.
know what the slime and the pitch, but this
Daubed is like she rubbed it all over. She spread it out on this.
and this,
She put the child down.
and she put the child therein, and laid it in the flags by the river brook.
Right.
And his sister stood afar off to know what would be done to him. And the daughters of Pharaoh came down to bathe in the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside. And she saw the ark among the flags, and sent her handmaid to fetch it, and opened it, and saw it, even the child, and behold, a boy that wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, This is one of the Hebrew children. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. And the maiden went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, Take this child away, and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it.
Right. So this was a plan that she had, because she had the child, and of course she wasn't going to kill her own child, but he started to make noise. You know how children are. They don't know when to keep quiet. So in order to preserve his life, she came up with this brilliant idea and put the child in the river, and knowing that Pharaoh's daughter would come, and again putting her trust in the Most High, that they would have compassion on the child, because when you look at that baby, you know, your heart just melts. And she saw that baby crying, and it touched her. So that there tells you that all the Egyptians were bad, because they're human beings too. But sometimes they're in positions that make them do things that are bad. Pardon me?
No, I'm saying that it makes you think that Pharaoh's daughter was barren because she raised Moses as her own.
Yeah, she raised him as
So,
a woman.
when you think about it, she may not have had it.
But regardless, her heart softened, and she could have got another child from her own Egyptians. But when she saw that cute little face, she was hooked. And her sister, his sister, was there, strategically placed there, so that she could offer help. And she went to her and said, "Oh, should I get the nurse?" And then she said, "Yeah." And she took her to the child's own mother, and she breastfed him until he was old enough where he could, he was weaned, and then he went into. So his former years, he was with his people. He was raised with his mother, so he established that bond with his people. So even though he may have grown up among the Egyptians, but those early years had an impact on him. All right, continue.
And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, and said, Because I drew him out of the water.
Right. So his grandfather knew who he was, because it's not like your daughter is living in your house. You don't know that ain't her baby, but I'm sure she, pleaded with him and told him, come on, just this one kid, have a heart. And, if you take him away, I will leave and never come back, or break his own heart. So somehow she got to him, but Pharaoh knew all along who he was. But because of his daughter's pleas, he let his guard down and didn't think to kill that one, because that was his mission, is to kill all the males, because he was trying to stop that Savior from coming to deliver the people.
And it came to pass in those days, when Moses grew up, that he went out unto his brethren, and looked on their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he smote the Egyptian and hid him in the sand.
Right. So, was this the first time Moses saw that happening?
I would guess not.
No, because he grew up there, right? It doesn't say how old he was then, but he was already a grown man, and that was a normal daily activity to go by and see somebody getting afflicted and getting beat and getting abused, because that was the way they did, and that was a way of life. So what made Moses all of a sudden want to risk his position? Because Moses was living a cushy life. He was the prince of Egypt, and at that time Egypt was a superpower, and he was on one of the elite, whereas the masses of people were being oppressed. That's like you could go to any of these countries where you have dictators, and although the countries as a whole may be poor, but the people that are in power, they're living the life of luxury. So Moses was not, although he felt for his brothers, he wasn't going to stick his neck out to help his people. But this time, and you can tell that because what did he do? Where did he look? He looked first to make sure that he wasn't jeopardizing his own position. But little did he know, continue.
And he went and he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he smote the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And he went out the second day, and behold, 2 men of the Hebrews were striving together. And he said to him, that did he wrong. Wherefore smitest thou thy fellow? And he said, who made thee a ruler and a judge over us?
Right.
That's really interesting, because he did eventually become the one that the Most High sent. I mean, this is a prelude. The Hebrew guy says to him, who made you, king, to rule over, so to speak. But then, later on, as we'll read further, that was a preview of what was to come. No.
Well, it's like this guy would say, who died and made you born? So, all right. So basically, he thought his secret was safe. But as you can see, the word got around. All right, 14th verse.
And he said, who made thee a ruler and a judge over us? Thinkest thou to kill me, as thou didst kill the Egyptian? And Moses feared and said, surely this thing is known. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. And Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well.
Right. So you can see when Pharaoh heard this, he wasn't shocked. His first reaction, let's kill him, because he knew that was that Israelite boy that he had in his house all those years. So he never really trusted him, because if it was one of his sons, his grandsons that had did that, he would have called him in and said to him, listen, son, you can't do that. Because, he could have pardoned him if he wanted, because he was all powerful. But because he knew that wasn't one of his, and that was that Israelite boy, he was ready to kill him immediately. So Moses fled.
But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelled in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the the troughs to water the father's flock. And the shepherds came down and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them and watered the flock. And when they came to rule their father, he said, how is it that you are come so soon today? And they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds. And moreover, he drew water for us and watered the flock.
It seems like there's a common thread here. With the well. So that was the place, if you wanted a wife, You went to the well. And you was guaranteed you're going to get a good one.
Right back from Abraham.
Yeah, that seems to be all right.
How? Okay.
20 verse.
20. And he said unto his daughters, and where is he? Why is it that he have left the man? Call him, that he may eat bread. And Moses was content to dwell with the man. And he gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter, and she bore a son. And he called his name Gershom, for he said, I've been a stranger in a strange land. And it came to pass in the course of those many days, that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of their bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up unto God by reason of the bondage, and God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. God saw the children of Israel, and God took cognizance of them.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we see even though that Pharaoh died, it was still the same regime. So even though you might have whoever is in charge, you get a new one, if it's of the same ideologies and same way of thinking, nothing's going to change. And again, this is why the people had to call on God. Of course, they always did, but finally, God heard them. And,
Well, it's interesting. Before I start, I always look at it in terms of that. It's part of the Most High's plan. That was his timing. That okay, now it's time for me to honor my promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Israel to take the people out of mysteries. That's my thesis. Okay. Giving honor to the Most High God for allowing me to wake up this morning and be here and serve Him, and to be able to continue to serve Him until the day He calls me. Bear with me. I'm going to bring my glasses so that I can read. Now Moshe was keeping the flock of Jethro's father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the furthest end of the wilderness and came to the mountain of God unto Horeb. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of a fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, but the bush was not consumed. And Moshe said, I will turn aside now and see this great sight, why the bush was not burnt. And when the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moshe, Moshe. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Draw not nigh neither. Put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereupon thou standest is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And Moshe hid his face, and he was afraid to look upon God. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people that are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. And I know their pains, and I am come down to deliver them out of the hands of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land unto a good land, and a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. And now, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me. Moreover, I have seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, and thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said unto God, Who am I, that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? And he said,
So, you see, God appeared to Moses in a burning bush.
Amen.
And that was an unusual phenomenon because usually when something burns in fire, it gets destroyed. But Moses noticed that the bush was not getting destroyed. So being a thinking man, and having been around the Egyptians, because he grew up in Pharaoh's house, and he was able to see a lot of the magic tricks, because those people dealt with all kinds of witchcraft and divination, as we'll see as we keep reading. So Moses was an educated person in those things. So he was able to look and see that there was something strange about this. But one of the commentaries says that the reason why it was shown in that form was to show him that of the part of the God that he can go into the midst of Pharaoh, into the lion's den, so to speak, or into the fire, and he still will be protected. He will not be consumed. Just as the bush was not consumed, that this power can do that for him and to protect him at the same time. Okay?
Okay, well, let's go.
Right, Moses, right, and then Moses, and when God told him to go, shalom, into the Egyptians, Moses had doubt.
Yes,
Because Moses didn't believe that he could be, delivered and go even speak to Pharaoh, because he knew the power of Pharaoh. Right?
And he said, Certainly I will be with you, and we shall be the chosen unto you, that I have sent thee, and thou brought forth the people out of Egypt. You shall serve God upon this mountain. And Moses said unto God, Behold, when I come unto the children of Israel.
Hold on. Can you hear him in the back?
No?
You gotta speak
Okay.
the mic. You gotta bring the
Okay.
mic. You can take the mic out.
Okay.
Hold on.
Okay. Okay, is this better? Okay. 13. Moses said unto God, Behold, when I come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, The God of your fathers hath sent me unto you, and they shall say to me, What is his name? What shall I say unto them? And God said unto Moshe, I am that I am. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. And God said moreover unto Moshe, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, The Lord of the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Ishak, the God of Jacob, have sent me unto you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations.
Right. So of course, when Moses had to go, first he had to go to the children of Israel to speak to them and try to convince them that he had come to deliver them. Because you can't just go in and deliver somebody and they have no idea of what you're trying to do. So that's why he said, when I go into them, who should I say sent me? Because first of all, he's more like a stranger unto them, because he's been out exiled for a while. It is said he was in Egypt Midian for about 40 years. So he was a forgotten force. And usually, if you're going to start a revolution or you want to start something, it's usually the people that are with the grassroots that have the connection. They have a connection with the people that are able to move the forces. so that's why he couldn't just come there as an outsider and expect the people to just follow him like that. So that's why he said, who is sending you? And then that's why he had to say the God of your father. First of all, the God of your father, because Abraham was not his direct father. It's the God of your father, then Abraham, Isaac, and then Jacob. And he said, I am that I am. And that is the English translation. But the Hebrew, for those, and this is not a secret, by the way, anybody who studies Hebrew or has heard anybody talk about it, know that it's really not I am that I am. It's I will be what I will be. Meaning that God can take anything that you need, he can manifest and change. Because I am that I am is kind of limiting, because if I am what I am, whatever I am, that's it. I am no more than that. But I will be what I will be is endless possibilities. See that? Correct. So that is why this is a critical point. But for the average person, yeah, the I am that I am, and they keep moving. But in the Hebrew, it's a difference. So they'll find a lot of things that are different.
But I was interested in following up and saying that, out of curiosity, why didn't the Most High use one of his names? I mean, for me, this is a curiosity question. As opposed to saying, I am, I am what I am, and I'll do what I want to do. For me, it was a question out of curiosity. I just wondered why he didn't say, had an I or whatever.
Well, that's assuming that everybody knew that name. So, okay.
Okay, and now there goes to another point. Now with the Hebrews in Egypt being enslaved, then what was their practice like? For example, they had, at least in my mind, this is my opinion, they had to know that through passing down and down, that there was I'll use the word legacy, okay, as we read, that there was a promise that the Most High would come and rescue them. And this is really when we get back to it, this is what Moshe goes back and really says, that in essence, I'm here to get you out of Egypt. So my question is that while the Hebrews were there in Egypt, what were their worshiping practices? Because this is another area, and if I'm digressing too much, anybody can speak out. But what were their religious practices, so to speak? What are their spiritual practices? Okay, now within the in Egypt, they worshipped idols. So did the Israelites just worship the one and true and living God, or did they worship others?
Well, that's the reason why they became enslaved, because they made a point of saying that after every one of Jacob's children died, that's when they came and their spirituality, they started to assemble with the Egyptians, and they started, like you said, there's a little hint there. Why did they get to that point? But they made a point that what I read, that all of the children of Jacob, the 70 souls, had died out before they came in captivity, as though it was already predicted that we were going to go in there. But why? Because they weren't serving. They weren't doing it.
Well, perhaps so that they were not serving Most High God. But they had not fully assimilated with the Egyptians, because that's how the Egyptians were able to differentiate between the children of Israel and the Egyptians and put them in bondage. So maybe they weren't serving God, but they certainly had not assimilated with the Egyptians, because the Egyptians were clear. That's what it said in the beginning of the chapter. They've become too mighty. There's too many of them. They're become a threat. Can you speak out?
My opinion on it is that the children, I don't think all of them, well, like, say how Moses got into Pharaoh's house.
Can you hear him?
How Moses went into Pharaoh's house.
You can say.
He got there because God put him in. And they didn't, it's the same thing as Joseph. They don't want these Egyptians know that these people are serving a true God. They don't want them to go because Egypt is prospering when they're there. And it's not as free labor for them. So I think that they had other Hebrews within Pharaoh's house as well. Maybe as servants or as
Laborers.
or whatever. The same thing that happened in even in America to this day. We as Israelites, some of us have gone up and moved up the ladder in government, in these higher positions of power. I mean, some of us don't know who we are still to this day, but they are in that power. And as far as the question when you were asking about why didn't God use the name, some of us already knew the name, God's name by the Almighty. It was another name I think he used with
Well, we're going to see some, he's going to reveal a couple of things. So.
the point I was trying to make was that I think God told Moses to name his name so that the people know that this I am, this that I can do whatever you guys envision, and not this some physical action.
Well, just mentioning who sent me is just the beginning of it. Because, first of all, just saying the name, Pharaoh is like, who is that? I don't know this. So, yeah, it's action. Action speaks louder than words. So we're going to see that. And that's why God is going to have to bring down the hammer. Not just talking, yes.
As I heard you saying that the translation, it's not I am that I am, but rather I will be what I will be. So as I'm sitting there, I'm wondering the same thing we're trying to, why didn't we call God by the name? Maybe God never had a name. Okay? It's like it goes by situation. When we in war, the God of war. So, I will be who I will be. When you're in distress, there is a name you call, that's the God of who's gonna come and save you when you're in distress. When things going well, there is a God of, you go gratefulness, or there is, because when you're looking at people, like there is a picture, I had it for years. He breaks down all the name of God and he gives you the meaning. So I guess to me the way I understand it, it really fits with I will be who I will be. In your time of need, I will be. So that's why we go with Elohim. It has a meaning to it. Different name, because as a human being, we only have one name. People call us all the time by one name. So we limit it to that name. If they call us, we come. If they call somebody else, you're not gonna come because you only have one name. But for God, He will be. So at the time of you have that problem,
What?
you have this is the God that you need right now. The same God, but He will be who He will be.
Right. So, but he does go a little further. If we go back to the 15th verse, well, actually, he said, I will be what I be in the 14th verse, but in the 15th verse, he said, God said moreover unto Moses, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers. So he's identifying himself, because there are like many gods out there. And to further narrow it down, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac and the God of Jacob has sent me unto you. He says, this is my name forever. So it's not just one description. You want to talk about the God we serve? It's the God of our forefathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. That's a very specific God. But then he was saying about, when he says, I will be what I will be, now he's talking about his attributes. But as far as his name, he said, this is my name forever, the God of your fathers, of Abraham, of Isaac. That's my name. That's his name. That's why whenever you see people come up, whether it be rabbis or mores or kohens or whatever, they always say, the God of our forefathers. You heard him, right? Every time, the God of our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac. And that's the one constant thing. Whether you call the name or you call Hashem, whatever. Anybody who knows themselves will say that. Yes.
I like to read this commentary about God's name. They address here. It said throughout Torah we find that the name does not only identify someone or something, rather it describes the role and the nature of the person or object which is its name. Therefore, when a baby is born, the Torah usually states both its name and the reason it was so named. In similar ways, God makes himself known to us by a variety of names. Each of those names indicate a particular attribute of God. For example, Yud-Heh-Vav is pronounced Hashem, God of kindness and mercy, while Elohim, the God of strict judgment. So God used different names, different times, different occasions. And Moses knew God by Hashem, mercy.
Well, first of all, the Yud-Heh-Vav way is not pronounced Hashem. That's what they say.
That they have to act.
Okay, that's what they say.
His name.
Well, some people do, some people don't. But in here, we don't because we follow the teachings of the rabbi at the house. So, but it's not a crime. Some people use it, and some don't. So we respect whatever your preference is. So, and if you go to the 16th chapter, right? And the 16th verse, thank you. You read the 16th verse? All right, read the 6th. All right, let's read the 16th verse.
Okay. Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say unto them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Ishak, the God of Israel, hath appeared unto me, saying, I have surely remembered you and seen that which is done to you in Egypt. Okay, and I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt unto the land of the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Amorite, and the Pezerite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite, unto a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall hearken to thy voice, and thou shalt come, thou and the elders of Israel, unto the king of Egypt. And ye shall say unto them, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, hath met with me. And now let us go, we pray thee, 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God.
Right, okay. So, in the 16th verse, it doesn't, in the Hebrew says it a little different. It's not going to say here. But the same thing he told Abraham or Jacob told Joseph. I will visit you. I will come back. So it was the same word that he used. The poked, he says, pakod, pakati. I will visit you. It was the same word. So that was like a code word that was used. So that was passed from Jacob to Joseph. And Joseph passed it on. So when he came and told them this was like the final code word that they knew that this was the God that they've been waiting for. So first he had to go to the elders, because usually the elders are the leaders of the community. And when it says all the elders, I mean, it's not like every single one of them, but all the people that were in leadership positions, those were the ones first he had to convince. And then, the masses would follow. Well, of course, Pharaoh had a different plan. It wasn't going to be that easy. But first, you had to get them to buy. You had to go through the leadership first. Okay, go ahead. And go down to the 19th verse.
19th verse. And I know that the king of Egypt will not give you leave to go except by the mighty hand.
Right. So right off the bat, the Most High God is telling Moses, this is not going to be a cakewalk in the park. It's not going to be that easy because I'm telling you right up front, he's going to say no to your request. So if you're telling me to go and do something and tell me you can't do it, what's the point of doing it? No, seriously, thinking logically, I'm telling you, I want you to go over there and ask him to give you $1, but he's not going to give you $1. So why go ask him? You're like, what? Okay, you have a comment? See, you have some. No? Okay. Well, he said he's not going to give it to you. Unless I come down with that. So here, finally, Moses, well, so far, I haven't seen where Moses is buying into this. Because so far, Moses is arguing with him. Who am I to go and do this? And then he's telling him, you're not going to be successful right away to begin with. So let's continue.
Okay, 20 verse. And I will put forth my hand and smite Egypt with all my wonders which I will do in the midst thereof. And after that he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And it shall come to pass that when ye go, ye shall not go empty, but every woman shall ask of her neighbor and of her that sojourneth in her house, jewels of silver, jewels of gold, remnant, and ye shall put them upon your sons and upon your daughters, and ye shall spoil the Egyptians.
Right. So, as what you were saying, not all the Israelites were in the field. Because it says, one, even of her that sojourneth in the house, meaning that she's doing housework. But she's still a slave, regardless. So,
They were midwives. They talked about the midwives. Not everybody was these things.
Okay. All right, continue. Oh, you done? Raphael, you want to do chapter 4? All right, thank you. So now you'll be thinking instead of reading, so now you're going to have more questions.
Maybe.
More comments.
Maybe.
All right, so we're at chapter 4.
And Moses answered and said, But behold, thou wilt not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice. For they will say, The Lord hath not appeared unto thee.
You're going to say, you're lying, man. You ain't seen no God. God didn't come to you.
And the Lord said unto him, What is that in your hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from before it.
Right. What would you do if you took out the staff and it turned into a serpent? So that's a test. Okay, continue.
And the Lord said unto Moses, Put forth thy hand and take it by the tails.
Now, anybody who knows about snakes knows that's not the right move. You don't grab the snake by the tail because it's turn around and bite you. But Moses did what God said. He believed him.
And he put forth his hand and laid hold of it, and it became a rod in his hand, that they may believe that the Lord thy God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, hath appeared unto thee.
Right. So, like I say, it wasn't sufficient to tell them, the right things as far as, God will visit you and the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now you have to have an additional sign, and this was this rod. Okay? 6th verse.
And the Lord said furthermore unto him, Put now thy hands into thy bosom. And he put his hands into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hands was leprous, as white as snow.
White as snow.
And he said, Put thy hand back into thy bosom. And he put his hands back into his bosom, and when he took it out of his bosom, behold, it was turned again as his other flesh.
Right. So you see, this sign here was not for the Israelites, because he didn't perform that sign for them. This was for Moses, because Moses still was not believing. So he had to again prove to him, this doesn't happen. You stick your hand out and turn his eye and then you put it back. This is not just a cheap, magician trick.
Right.
This is more powerful than that. Okay.
And it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not believe thee, neither hearken to the voice of the first signs, that they will believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe even these 2 signs, neither hearken unto thy voice, that thou shalt take of the water of the river, and pour it upon the dry land, and the water which thou have taken out of the river shall become blood upon the dry land.
So now this was a major sign, because the Nile was like a god to the Egyptians, because the Nile was what gave them the fertile grounds when it overflowed. When the floods would go down, when they come back, then they have fertile land, and that's how they were able to get their crops. So they really, worship that kind of. To us, it sounds silly that you would worship, a river, but they believed in that. They believed in all kinds of different things. So that was a major thing when, if he could turn, take the water, and then when he puts it on the ground, it turns into blood. That was another powerful sign. You got a comment? No.
And Moses said unto the Lord, O Lord, I am not a man of words, neither theretofore, nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, for I am slow of speech, and of a slow tongue.
Right. So Moses is still trying to backpedal. Huh? Right. He's like, well, I got a lot of I can't even speak. And you want me to go speak to these people? And I've been like that a long time, and even then, since you spoke to me, I'm still the same way. I haven't changed.
The Most High told him to tell Pharaoh to let his people go, and Moses said I had to start talking. He said, well, who put those up?
Right. So when I read that next chapter, I was thinking of you, Mother Aaliyah, because you always say that. And I said, that's Mother Aaliyah's furnace right here. Pretty much. Almost identical, but close enough. I said, that's Mother Aaliyah. So basically he said, which verse was that? And Deborah said, O Lord, I am not a man of words, neither heretofore, nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant. So in other words, I haven't changed, so don't think I'm the man for the job. Okay, continue.
And the Lord said unto him, Who has made thy mouth?
Right. That's what you said. Who made your mouth? Who put them lips on you?
Or who maketh a man dumb,
Right.
or deaf, or seeing, or blind?
Right. Because God has the ability to blind you and you can still see.
All right.
Because have you ever at work, you're working and you do something or you didn't do something, you're like, how did I not see that? How could I have made that mistake? But yet I'm seeing everything else, but the things I really need to see or pay attention to, I have a temporary blindness or something happens to me. And God is in control of those things. So when Moses and Aaron were able to go in and out like that, it wasn't like a Jedi mind trick they were working on the people. God was able to open up the way so that the gods would let them have access to Pharaoh and Moses, because God is in control of all that. So sometimes you think, I'm a dead man, but God will make a way. And the people that are supposed to watch, they don't even see you, they don't even hear you or understand what you're doing. All right, continue.
Verse 12. Now therefore go, and I will be with thy mouth.
Right. That's a funny way of saying, I will be with thy mouth. Meaning saying, I'm going to take over. The words are going to come out. Don't worry about that slow tongue.
And,
all right?
And teach thee what thou shalt say. Speak.
Right. And this is the thing. He will teach you.
Hallelujah.
And this is why this book is so important, because the teaching in here is what carries us. And this is the understanding. So, yes, we put our trust in God, but at the same time, we have to educate ourselves in doing the right thing. It's not all. I mean, yes, you got to have faith. Faith is the beginning of it. But the other part of it is actually doing that work and taking the time to study and get understanding.
And he said, O Lord, send, I pray thee, by the hands of him whom thou wilt send.
Yeah, serious this thing. So just send whoever you're going to send. All right.
And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. And
God
said,
is like losing patience with him. Listen, son. Getting on my nerves now. Okay.
Is there not Aaron thy brother, the Levite? And I know that he can speak well. And also, behold, he cometh forth to meet thee, and when he see thee, he will be glad in his heart.
Right. That's also letting him know, don't worry, Aaron's not going to be jealous of you. Because even though you're the younger brother, you're going to be in charge. You're going to tell him what to do. And he's going to be happy to see you, and he's going to support you 100%.
And thou shalt speak unto him, and put the words in his mouth. And I will be with thy mouth, and with his mouth. And I will teach you what ye shall do. And he shall be thy spokesman unto thy people. And it shall come to pass that he shall be to thee a mouth, and thou shalt be to him in God's stead.
Right. So basically, what it shows is that sometimes you need help from other people. You know, he may have a strength, you have another strength. So he's going to be the spokesman, but you're going to be basically feeding him the information that he needs to convey. And then as a team, you work and accomplish your goal.
And thou shalt take in thy hand this rod, wherewith thou shalt do the signs. And Moses went and returned to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said unto him, Let me go, I pray thee, and return unto my brethren that are in Egypt, and see whether they be yet alive. And Jethro said to Moses, Go in peace.
Right. So, as you know, Moses at the time was living with his father-in-law. And of course,
What
living the good life,
Yeah.
taking care of sheep and being a shepherd.
Right? And he was living as a high priest. Jephthah was no lightweight. He was a high priest.
I know, but he was out there taking care of the
He
sheep.
was living good.
It's all
He
relative.
lived in Pharaoh's
He
house.
exactly. Yeah, go ahead. Say what I was about to say.
Oh no, go ahead. That's what I was gonna say. He lived in Pharaoh's house, so he lived in the big house. So
Yeah, he went from the big house to tending sheep.
right.
So, but if he had peace,
He was shepherd.
it's good. Moses can't say that. I mean, not before now. Not before he got to Jethro. Because Moses was raised with a silver spoon in his mouth. And that's a fact. So basically, to show respect to his father-in-law, he goes to him and tells him, listen, I have to go and take care. Excuse me, you want to say to everybody? Let's hear it. No, might as well. This is open discussion.
No, I was saying, when she was saying that, when you say that in perspective, that it's not living good, but when you think about agriculture, you think about it in a lower sense term. But when you're connected to the earth, you have different vibrations than in the big house.
Well, I can't say, I can't
my father,
relate.
he retired, and he went back to sheep and taking care of animals. There's something about being in touch with the land. And there's something about being in touch with nature that changes who you are.
That's correct. But that is not, when you compare, when you talk about living the life of Riley versus that. What you're talking about, that's the life of a more wholesome,
Humble.
peaceful.
Humble.
But that's not living high. That's a very humble.
That's a matter of respect.
No, when we talk about living high is material. It's a materialistic thing. But living humble and with nature is probably is more wholesome, probably better for you.
Richer and
And
more
so-
ways than one. That's my opinion. That's my
Okay.
opinion.
All right. Looks like I'm outnumbered. Go ahead. Go ahead. It's just when you say that, this is what people talk about. They say he's living the good life. That means you're in the big house. It doesn't mean that if you're down. As a matter of fact, there have been people, from what I hear, that were like executives. Stress. Successful, but stressful. They gave up everything and they went to a simple life and they're happy with simplicity. But they're not living the big life anymore. But they're better off than what they were. Okay, any other comments before Raphael continues? Yes, you do have one. Go ahead.
Why God always has the so-called leaders of Israel come from this little state. All our forefathers were men of the land, herdsmen, shepherds, planting the ground. David came from shepherds. I mean, all
Some
these
to it.
people.
I'm going to have to pass that to someone. How you think?
Why is that?
Anybody that knows why?
And they use that the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. That is a telltale sign that the shepherd is very important. to God.
It's very easy.
And he said, I leave my flock.
Yes.
And all of that is a transformation you take when you get in touch with the land, and it's humility. And it is a connection to the earth and everything else. When you get in a big house, you forget who you are, you forget God, you think you're almighty, and the little thing.
Well, a shepherd is a nurturing
Yes.
person. He cares for those that he leads. So that's why, as a D say, could be a figure of speech, because that's an analogy. But in your case, it's not an analogy because some of them actually did come from that. But in the psalm, it is an analogy. So you're both right. But why is that? That could be one of the reasons, because he has that quality where if he has so much compassion to care enough for these animals, which are God's creatures as well, then he might have the good characteristics to lead people as well. That's just an idea. What do you think, Ariel?
I'm coming. You knew I was coming.
I heard you.
Yeah, I was coming. All right. One of the reasons was to show us and all the future generations the power and might that Hashem has. He can take anything from anywhere and make it anything he wants it to be. So, you start off low, when you get up here, you appreciate what you got. When you got here, because you didn't have nothing now. If you started up here, you don't really appreciate it because you always had it. So, that's my thing. That he always started us in, and like you said, being a shepherd and stuff wasn't a lowly life. You know what I mean? It wasn't. But I always believe that he picked our forefathers and started them off down here. So that when he brought them up, then everybody around could see the power of Hashem in what he could do with any person, anywhere, anytime. So that's
Right. But with Moses, he took a different approach. But Moses was not your average person. What Oriel says is 100% correct. But in Moses' case, Moses grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. Then, right, but for the first 40 years, according to Rabbinical Academy, it says that the first 40 years was in Egypt. So he had a good run. Then the rug got pulled off from underneath him and he fell hard. So he had to run, and lucky for him, he went to the well. The reason why they're laughing is because earlier we were talking about how Moses went to the well, and that's where he met his wife. And I'm saying back in those days it was where you meet girls. Because all our forefathers, they got their wives at the well. True?
The women tended the sheep. Right. And the women are the ones who watered the water. So that's why you would always find them
At the well. So,
that was the best dating
but
spot.
not today. Today you won't find them there. You have to go to the synagogue. No, but anyway, the thing is, so now Moses went from a high place to a lower place. And this is when Hashem spoke with him, when he had them down. So he had his attention. So you're more humble when you're not surrounded by all this material wealth and having people souping you up and making you think you're great and everything, which is exactly what was being done to Pharaoh. So he had to speak to him in a different place. That was the same thing he did with Abraham. He had to take Abraham out of his environment to bring him to a place where I could speak to you, in a place where it's just you and I, where you strip from all that material wealth, and now you can get in touch with your spirituality. And so now he's beginning to reveal certain things to the Most High. I mean, the Most High is revealing certain things to him.
Okay, number 19. And the Lord said unto Moses in Midian, Go return unto Egypt, for all the men are dead, and that sought thy life. And Moses took his wife and his sons, and set them upon an ass, and he returned to the land of Egypt. And Moses took of the rod of God in his hand. And the Lord said unto Moses, When thou goest back unto Egypt, see that thou do before Pharaoh all the wonders which I have put in thy hand. But I will harden his heart, and he will not let the people go. And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, thus said the Lord, Israel is my son, my firstborn.
Hold on. Didn't this in the New Testament, who is the firstborn? Oh, this is in the Old Testament. Israel is the firstborn. What song? Israel is my son. All right. Continue.
And I have said unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me, and that thou hast refused to let him go. Behold, I will slay thy son, thy firstborn.
All right, hold on a second. So basically here, this is where it's figuratively speaking. When he says, Israel is my firstborn. This is not literal, obviously. So people have to understand what he means by that. But also here, if you notice, he's giving him an ultimatum. Obviously, he's not trying to reason with Pharaoh. Because how are you going to tell somebody, you better do this? Right? Isn't that basically what he's saying? He's saying, what verse is that? 23. Let my son go, that he may serve me. And thou hast refused to let him go. Behold, I will slay your son, your firstborn. Already he's, starting off very antagonistic with Pharaoh. And I guess the reason for that is that Pharaoh has already demonstrated his arrogance and all the tyranny that he has put on the people. So really Pharaoh is already too far gone for the Most High to even try to reason with him. So he's not even going to start off by saying, let me bring the olive branch to you. He's just telling him right off the bat, let him go. And of course Pharaoh is going to say, who do you think you are? I'm not doing that. But anyway, go ahead.
There's a question, she has a question.
Oh, sorry.
But, in terms of like, Pharaoh was too far gone for the Most High to, I don't know if there is a too far gone for the Most High. But, he said, I'm going to send you, but I will harden his heart. That's what he said. He will harden his heart. So that, I don't even think that is, because when the Most High want to show his power, God have mercy on us. Because if we are the one that he want to show his power through, because the children of Israel have to suffer a lot. But that was the Most High's way to show his power. He could have done it a different way.
He certainly could have.
But this is the way he chose. And that's why sometimes right now I'm facing some situation, and I think when I look back, I said, it's like the Most High sent something your way, you don't learn it. He strike you like you don't get it. It's like you're hearing something that you didn't get it before, you didn't get it last time. So let's try this now. If you're gonna get it, you don't get it, you don't know what's gonna come your way. So it's I truly believe that being a child of God, or it's not even somebody gonna make you come to the knowledge. It's been talking to you that you are, like you know better. Sometimes it's like you said, we're really hard-headed.
Right. But the thing is,
it's gonna keep showing us the power, and
you're right. However, Pharaoh,
yeah,
in his mind, he was God. Pharaoh was acting like a god. And he had gotten too arrogant. And the Most High was not going to let him off the hook that easy. So that's why God wanted to do. And he didn't just have one or two infractions. Pharaoh did a lot. hurt a lot. And not just Pharaoh himself, that whole line, that whole regime. Because you can't exact that much pain on the people by yourself. Just like what's happening in this administration today, it's not one man doing it. You got supporters. And that's why when he exacted vengeance, and he didn't just do it to Pharaoh, he did it to all the people that are responsible. So this goes deeper than one person. So.
24. And it came to pass on the way at the lodging place that the Lord met him and sought to kill him.
Okay, I like that.
Oh, yeah,
Did it
you
just-
circumcised.
Okay, right. It's interesting how the Torah is flowing. Then all of a sudden, boom, at least
Out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
Right.
It came that basically that Moshe didn't circumcise his son. And that the angel was going to kill him. Now, my question is that, yeah, Moshe is now agreed to go to Mitzrayim to, liberate the people. But at the same time, it seems like he forgot some of the fundamentals. The fundamental from Abraham, basically, so that the male sons have to be circumcised.
The 8th day.
Right, and he didn't do it. Right.
And he just had that baby. He just had that baby.
And basically,
It was the 8th day.
if it wasn't for Zipporah, who basically is not an Israelite, but she had the knowledge of imparted to her, that she had to do what she had to do to save her child.
How did she know that?
But she was converted. She was converted as a Hebrew.
There was no conversion.
Well, I'm using that term as
There
converted.
was no such thing.
That was, yeah, but he taught her ways, because she couldn't have
Right.
signed if he didn't tell her. How did she know? Because he had to tell her.
Well, we don't know exactly how she came by that
She had
knowledge,
to
but
learn
the
it.
Most High
Like
made
you said,
it
he had to learn it.
possible.
Moses had to teach it. It sure wasn't just her.
Midian is south of Egypt, right? I think it's near. What is Midian? Is that near? I'm not sure exactly, but it's the south. It's south. It's,
I know my son was born in Zambia.
right. Hold on 1 second. Let him finish.
Jethro was a priest, and his daughter Zipporah she's a priest's daughter.
Right. He was a priest, but not necessarily a priest from the Israelite perspective. So maybe they knew about that. Maybe. We don't know.
Remember, Abraham had a
And-
son, Midian also.
Right. Abraham.
Okay, but I'm saying in her case,
When Abraham met the other priest.
Melchizedek.
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 Right. How did he know that? How did Abraham know that this man is from God?
Okay, so there are spiritual. There
The laws are there, have been around already.
There were laws there already, but they were not in the form that eventually came down at Mount Sinai. But there were certain elements. Circumcision was there, Shabbat was there, there was other, as you mentioned, there's different things.
One generation to the next, and then he had to write it down afterwards, but it was.
Right, there were certain things where it wasn't as organized as it is after Mount Sinai. Because you will hear other people go to Hammurabi and they would say a lot of the things came from there, and perhaps some of the things were taken. And I believe, at least that's my opinion, is that what we have from the Torah was some of the best customs or the best laws that were put into one system. That's my opinion, but you might say,
The Torah existed before man, so that's why when they said that, it had to be in existence for order, because God is all about order.
it is. But you still didn't have it in the form that it was given at Mount Sinai. So that's why I say you have different elements and components that they took. And it's not like this was something that came out of nowhere. It was something that was already established, and now it was put into a system that was going to use it. All right, so apparently you were getting restless, so we got to keep it moving.
She's a diabetic.
That's what I said, we got to keep it moving, be considerate. But if you need to give us something so that people sugar.
Well, I just want to say this.
Yes, Mother.
In 1954, my son was born in St. Mary's Hospital in Brooklyn. That was a Catholic hospital. But one of their spiritual things was when before a boy child comes home, they are circumcised. And I was surprised because after years passed by, I realized that. I said, that was amazing that all the boys.
Well, they did that was for health reasons.
Yeah,
Hygiene.
and
It was for hygiene, it was not spiritual.
that was in 1954.
Okay, so let's keep it moving.
Next step.
What was it? Where were we?
Okay, then Zipporah took a flint and cut off the foreskins of her son and cast it at his feet. And she said, surely a bridegroom of blood art thou to me. So he let them alone. And then he said, a bridegroom of blood in regard of the circumcision. And the Lord said unto Aaron, go into the wilderness to meet Moses. And he went and met him in the mountains of God and kissed him. And Moses told Aaron all the words of the Lord wherewith he had said, or wherewith he had sent him, and all the signs wherewith he had charged him. And Moses and Aaron went and gathered together all the elders of the children of Israel. And Aaron spoke all the words which the Lord had spoken unto Moses, and he did the signs in the sight of the people. And the people believed, and when they heard that the Lord had remembered the children of Israel, and that he had seen their afflictions, then they bowed their heads and worshipped.
All right, so last chapter, the 5th chapter. So basically, yeah. So he had basically won the people over initially until what happens next. Because, first they accepted him. Okay, you're elected, we voted for you. Now go ahead and do the thing. Do your job. Bring us out. And then we get to chapter 5.
Chapter 5, verse 1. And afterwards Moses and Aaron came and said unto Pharaoh, Thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, Let my people go, that they may hold a feast unto me in the wilderness. And Pharaoh said, Who is the Lord, that I should hearken unto his voice to let Israel go? I know not the Lord, and moreover I will not let Israel go.
Right. So right there, that's the arrogance that we were talking about. All right, continue.
And they said, The God of the Hebrews hath met with us. Let us go, we pray thee, 3 days' journey into the wilderness, and sacrifice unto the Lord our God, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword.
Right. So that argument, to me, was not a strong argument, because Pharaoh doesn't care if your Lord is going to put pestilence on you. He's the one already afflicting you. So to use that argument, I don't know where that came from.
It sounds like today.
It sounds like they're trying to plead to his kinder sense. They say, well, think about us. Think of what might happen, if we don't do that. But he's not buying that.
And the king of Egypt said unto them, Wherefore do ye, Moses and Aaron, cause the people to break loose from their work? Get you unto your burdens.
Right. He said, why you guys are coming and stirring up trouble? All right.
And Pharaoh said, Behold, the people of the land are now many, and will ye make the rest of them from their burdens? And the same day Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people and their officers, saying, Ye shall no more give the people straw to make brick, as heretofore. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. And the tale of the bricks, which they did make heretofore, ye shall lay upon them. Ye shall not diminish aught thereof, for they are idle. Therefore they cry, saying, Let us go and sacrifice to our God. Let heavier work be laid upon the men, that they may labor therein. and let them not regard lying words. And the taskmasters of the people went out, and their officers, and they spoke to the people, saying, Thus said Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go yourselves, get you straw where you can find it, for naught of your work shall be diminished. So the people were scattered abroad throughout all the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. And the taskmasters were urgent, saying, Fulfill your work, your daily task, as when there was straw. And all the officers of the children of Israel, whom Pharaoh's taskmasters had sent over them, were beaten, saying, Wherefore have ye not fulfilled your appointed task in making brick, both yesterday and today, as heretofore?
Right. So basically, the officers, as I said, were actually Israelites, because the taskmasters were the Egyptians, but then they had, Israelites making sure that the work got done. So when the work wasn't get done, they got a flogging. Okay? As we have today, sometimes, somebody put one of us in charge. You call that HIC. Put in charge, and he's sometimes could be harder than the slave master. But you understand why? Because he is in a position, not because he doesn't care for us, but he's thinking about his own hide. Because if he doesn't perform, meaning if you don't perform, he's going to be in trouble. Okay, continue.
Then the officers of the children of Israel came and cried unto Pharaoh, saying, Wherefore dealest thou thus with thy servants? There is no straw given unto thy servants, and they say to us, Make brick. And behold, thy servants are beaten, and the fault is thine own people. But he said, Ye are idle, ye are idle. Therefore ye say, Let us go and sacrifice unto the Lord. Go therefore now and work, for there shall no straw be given you. Yet shall ye deliver the tale of bricks. And the officers of the children of Israel did see that they were set on mischief, when they said, Ye shall not diminish aught from your bricks, your daily tasks. And they met Moses and Aaron, who stood in their way. And as they came forth from Pharaoh, they said unto them, The Lord look upon you and judge, because ye have made our Savior to be abhorred in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of his servants, to put a sword in their hand to slay us. And Moses returned unto the Lord and said, Lord, wherefore hast thou dealt ill with this people? Why is it that thou hast sent me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in thy name, he had dealt ill with thy people, neither hast thou delivered thy people at all.
Right. So basically, things got worse. Instead of getting better, things are getting worse. And so, guess who's the bad guy now? It's Moses and Aaron. It seems like he's been left holding the bag. But, and then the last verse is 6th chapter, 1st verse. Yeah.
And the Lord said unto Moses, Now shalt thou see what I will do to Pharaoh. For by a strong hand shall he let them go, and by a strong hand shall he drive them out of his land.
Right. So this Right, that concludes the reading. But basically what this is saying is, tune in next time, same bad channel, same bad time, to see what's going to happen. So basically, this is just the beginning. And most of you already know the story. We go through this every year, and every time you read it, hopefully you get something out of it. And I hope and pray that the Most High, thanks for the reading, I hope that the Most High has opened something, perhaps something that you got out of it. And definitely, there's no better way to spend Shabbat than reading the Word of the Most High. With that, I say Shabbat Shalom. And if we have any tithes and offerings and any announcements, we'll collect the tithes and offerings, and I have any announcements, we will make them at this time. Do you have any? Okay. So there are no announcements. Anything to report? Everything's good. All right, so so of course we'll continue our reading to see what happens next, which we already know what happens, but we continue to study. And if you have any questions, over the week, write them down, so next time we can deal with them. Over kids. Oh, you gotta read next chapter. Well, yeah, we can still discuss, you know, if you have any additional, but I think we pretty much covered everything. So I understand that this week they have youth Shabbat in Philadelphia. So
Oh yeah, that's where all of our young people are today. They had the youth Shabbat down here. Shakina, Israel, Rabbi, Shemot, and all of them that represent Beth Elohim
right.
down in the youth Shabbat.
They had the youth Shabbat today, but that.
It's Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia. ICBC meeting is the first Sunday in January. We'll be at BCB in Brooklyn. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get more synagogues involved. So we're holding the meeting at different synagogues. People that have not been out to one can hear because they'll be there.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's in Brooklyn. It's near Smith and Knight Street. It's near Smith and Knight Street.
What's the name of that synagogue?
DCB?
DCB. That's what they call it.
DCB.
I'll be giving a short preview on the tax season because Congress turns over on January 1st. So it's going to take them, well, if they will not, because they're closed. It's going to take them a while to decide which of those things are going to stick and which ones they're going to take over. Because as of right now, I'm trying to get some samples of what the new form's supposed to look like. I doubt it was going to change, the tax form is going to change just some of the rules. You'll still be able to deduct a lot of the things that you deducted before. It's just that some of them will be limited to max. Which most of the people here, I don't think it's going to affect you that much. So, but I guess it'll be a short one, and then the next one in February, when we have the next ICBC meeting in February, I'll be able to give out way more information, and still going to try to have a few little handouts to show what they're suggesting, and take it from there. My shit is on outside, so it's going to be okay. All right? That's all I can think of.
All right, so then we'll make the mission be right for those who did the offering.
All right, would you stand?
On page 414. He who bless our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may bless this entire holy congregation, along with all the holy congregations, and their sons, wives, sons, and daughters, and all that is theirs, and those who dedicate synagogues for prayer, and those who enter them to pray, and those who give lamps for illumination, and wine for contribution of Dalah, bread for gifts, and charity for the poor, and all who are involved faithfully in the needs of the community. May the Holy One bless his deed, pay their reward, and remove from them every affliction, heal their entire body, and forgive their every iniquity, and send blessing and success to all their handiwork, along with all Israel, the brethren, let us say, Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord unto you.
Yes,
The Lord lift up his face and towards you and grant you peace. Shabbat Shalom.